Alright, our last video was about drawing in one-point perspective. We did different boxes from different viewing points. You may have done some extras on top of these from different angles to see how the boxes change depending on their position to the horizon line and the vanishing point. So now we're going to draw a city, and similarly to when we drew our landscapes, okay, as buildings get farther away, they are going to get smaller and less detailed, and there is going to be a pathway. So to start our city, we're going to start just like we did with boxes. We need a horizon line, and we need a vanishing point. Notice I put them kind of high. It's going to leave me plenty of room for a city below. I can start by making a road. So the road's going to go towards the vanishing point. And if I want to make it look like there's a cross street, I can draw a straight line right here, like so. And then it's like there's a road here and a road here. Okay, you can add sidewalks. And again, those go towards the vanishing point. Notice how it's getting wider here. Can turn a corner just like my street. Again, the sidewalk goes towards the vanishing point, so make sure your ruler up here is always going towards that point. Okay. If I want to pretend that there's another road coming somewhere, it can meet here, maybe. And again, these lines are going to go completely horizontal. And I can put a sidewalk here as well, right? And you'll notice when I draw this sidewalk that this width is thinner than this one because it's farther away. So I'm trying to copy the width of the sidewalk where it intersects. And these lines are going to go horizontal. Okay, so now it looks like I've got some city blocks here. Some of this may end up getting covered up as I draw buildings, but that's okay. We want to have a good starting place. Okay. So now I can start adding some buildings. So I want to have the front part of my building that's closest to me. Okay, and I'm going to make this one just go a tiny bit higher, I think. Make it go and cover up part of this sidewalk right here. And draw the bottom of it. Okay, now I can draw the side and top of it. Since it's below my vanishing point, I will see the top of this building. So this is my converging lines that are headed towards my vanishing point. And then these lines again are horizontal and vertical. Oops, that one was angled. That's not going to look right, so I will make sure my ruler is completely straight up and down. Okay, and I'm doing this in pencil so I can erase as many times as I need. If I decide things are overlapping, I can erase and cover them up. Okay, so now I have a building. Right now, though, it just looks like a box sitting here because it has no details. So I can add details. I could add something to the rooftop. Maybe there is an edge to it. There could be an AC unit sitting on top. If it is, it's going to also be in perspective, just like the building. Okay, so anything else on the building has to be in the same perspective as the building. Now, anything that's on the front here looks normal because this side is facing towards me. It's the front. So if I drew windows, for example, they would just be normal rectangles on the front, but on the side here, they have to go in perspective. So these are going to be angled. These are going to be angled towards my vanishing point here. Okay. So see, these lines still come straight up and down, but these lines head towards that vanishing point. I can add doorway. And again, these lines are going to be completely vertical. But this horizontal line, instead of going normally like that, it's got to head towards the vanishing point. And it seems odd at first, but as you get the hang of it and you start drawing these things, it makes more sense. If I were to draw a door on this, a door on the front here, it's going to just be normal, straight up and down. Okay, so windows and doors added. This side they look normal, this side goes side to side. So I'm going to add some more details to this building, and then I'll come back and give you more instructions on new buildings. Right, so I have this building now. I can add other buildings. There can be a building to the side, behind it, over here. Remember, the buildings get smaller, so this building is going to be larger than this building. So I want to make sure, see how tall this building is? Would not want to put the building that tall here. So I'm going to make another building here, but I'm going to make it shorter. So if I compare this size to this one, see, ooh, this one's much smaller. And that's what I want, because that's going to make more sense in perspective. Because we talked about last week, things get smaller as they get far away. Now this building covers up the horizon line and it goes on top. So I'm not going to see the top of this building anymore. I'm just going to see the side of it, which again goes towards the vanishing point. Again, this line goes completely vertical, and then I'm erasing what's overlapping the horizon line. I'm erasing the horizon line there. One of the things I did over here is I added sidewalk going towards my building. So you can do that. Once you have your buildings drawn and you know where your doorways are, you can add sidewalk going towards your doors if you want, because that kind of would make sense. Your buildings can have details like bushes in front, you know, some landscaping around them. You might add a parking lot in the background. Okay, so you can add some details, maybe this is going to be like a parking garage here for the cars to park. So you can add different details to your picture to make it look more like a city. Maybe you have some houses as well as buildings, or some cars on your street if you really want to challenge. But the main thing that you're looking for is for your buildings to all head towards your one point of perspective, and all of the details within the building as well. So again, if I put a door right here, this top of the door has to go towards that vanishing point. And you'll see this door is smaller than this door, which is closer to me. This building is smaller than this building, which is closer to me. So now that I have another building, I can also do some other things to make it fun. I can change the shape of the windows, the number of windows. I can change the building to add details or take them away to make it look different. So like I might, in this one, I might make small rectangular windows where this had long windows, right? And so that could create some interest. You could also maybe give a different texture to it. So if you wanted, instead of windows, if you wanted to make it look like a brick building, you could make this look like bricks. Keep in mind, any bricks that go this way, they have to go towards the vanishing point. So these lines are angled towards that vanishing point. So if I line them up, they have to go towards the vanishing point here. Always, always. So that kind of helps create that illusion of perspective if you give details to your building and put them in perspective. Okay. So just some fun ways to make your windows or you're building bricks or stones or anything like that. And then you can have them in perspective. Maybe that's siding or something like that. I'm going to put up some examples on Google Classroom that show all kinds of different ways that you can do your cities, types of buildings you can do. Maybe you can create like a little storefront with an awning. Maybe there's a park over here. Maybe there's like a lake that has some trees beside it for people to visit. You just want to kind of keep in mind that perspective. Anytime you do anything, add any details, think about how big or small these things are going to be in comparison to the buildings that are on the same level with them or to the front. But really try to be creative here and add some fun details to your building. All right, so you can see I've added some more detail. I've created like this little foresty swamp area back here. I've made this into a supermarket with an awning. Notice again, all these lines head towards the vanishing point if they are on the side of the building or on the top of the building. But if they are in this front part that's facing me, they are not in perspective, they're drawn normally. Okay, I create some little side roads and sidewalks, make the buildings to have different textures and details. And then once you're all done with your drawing, you can even have, it can look like there's more buildings off in the background. It could look like there's mountains behind the city. You can make, just as much as creativity as you have for what's going to be farther away than the buildings in your city. Okay, so once you have that done, now you need to decide if you want to go further with this. There's some different things you could do. You can, of course, always add shading with pencils, especially if you have your sketch pencils, and then come in and do some nice gradient values with shading, some dark areas, some light areas to make it look like maybe it's daytime or nighttime, or some of these windows have lights on and some don't. You'll see I have some lamps and some light bulbs that in these buildings that are closer where I can see more details. I even put like a little basket of fruit in front of the market. Okay. Maybe if you don't want to do shading, you can do some outlining. Okay. I have finished drawing my picture and I've used a thin Sharpie like this one to outline. It makes it a little bit easier now. You can see this was my vanishing point and all these lines head towards that vanishing point. On the sides of all of my buildings, my sidewalk and road head towards that. So using my ruler, I can make sure that I've done this correctly, headed towards the vanishing point. Okay. If you don't have a thin Sharpie at home, you could try a thin marker or even a black pen for outlining. If you do that, then you can erase all your pencil marks. If you've used a Sharpie, that opens up the possibility to easily do something like paint or watercolor. But if you've used a water-soluble pen or marker, you're probably not going to want to use any kinds of paints or watercolors. In that case, you could do some shading either with pencils or crayons or colored pencils to finish off your work. I am going to follow up with a technique using markers and watercolor, so I'll show you guys that. All right, you'll see here that I have washable markers. These are water soluble and can be used to create a watercolor technique at home if you don't have them. If you have one that doesn't say washable on it, it's not going to have the same technique. Okay, so you're looking for ones that say washable, and this will give you a way to kind of do a watercolor effect without having watercolors at home. You can also use these in conjunction with the watercolors you have at home. So I'm going to show you that. So what I'm doing here, I'm outlining the outside of my mountains where my sky is starting with this blue washable marker. And I don't have to make it a precise line here. That's not what I'm going for necessarily, because I'm going to use the water to make a watercolor technique. So the more I color right now, the more ink I'll have to spread with my water. And I can take my water on my brush here, and I can paint along the edges of my marker, and you'll see that that starts to spread and create a watercolor technique. Now, when you do this, you do not get the precision of what you would get with just using markers or crayons or colored pencil. It's going to do this bleeding effect. So make sure that's something that you like before you do it. Okay? If you want to make sure that it doesn't bleed into your object, so here I've kind of created this where it's going back and forth over the Sharpie line. I like that because the mountains in the distance should be kind of fuzzy because they're so far away. But if I don't want that to happen, instead of coloring right on the edge, I'm actually going to color around with a white space in between. So see, I'm leaving this white space right here. That's going to protect my line. So watch how this looks different now. So as this is bleeding, it's not reaching the edge of my line, okay? So I can come and continue to spread this up if I want, or I can just leave it like an outline. If I have watercolors, which I do right here beside me, so if I have watercolors, I can actually then take my watercolor and blend it into my marker, and that's also a different effect, okay? If I wanted to outline with markers, but I don't want them to bleed, I can get non-washable markers like this and create an outline. And then I can watercolor next to them with some watercolor. So I'm using this tray of watercolors here, and I'm using this light blue. And this time I'm not going to get as much bleeding as I did because these are not washable markers. So this is going to leave a cleaner outline. It might bleed a little bit, especially if I just use the marker. But you can see here, see how wavy this is and how clean and crisp this is. This is a washable marker, and this is a non-washable marker. So that kind of gives you some options. So I'm going to add some details to this, and then I'll come back and show you what I've got. Alright, so I've allowed some bleeding to happen here at different colors. This is far away in the distance, the background. I'm going to watercolor these buildings also to be kind of blurry because they're far away. But once I've finished that, when I come into my buildings and my road, I'm going to give more detail. So I'm going to be more careful with my watercolors. On these, I did marker first and then watercolor. What I'm going to do on the front here is watercolor, and then when it's dry, give some outlining details with the different color markers. You could also trace more colors with Sharpies if you had colorful Sharpies at home, and then you can watercolor on top of them and nothing's going to bleed. So there's just some different options for you. But keep in mind, I'm keeping this background nice and blurry. It's far away, so there's no detail. And then as I get closer, I should have more detail and more refined lines. Okay, so I'm going to get some more painting done, and then I'll come back and give you guys some more details. Okay, I have added the coloring with watercolors around for like the road and sidewalks and landscape in the background that's kind of far away. So this still doesn't have a lot of details back here. Sidewalk and road is pretty simple. But now I'm going to do my buildings, and especially as I get closer, I want them to have more detail. So I'm going to start off by watercoloring first this time. And when that's dry, I'm going to add marker on, add some details, again, especially closer to me where these buildings need more detail. These back here are going to have more detail than these that are super far away. They're just one color, but they will not have as much detail as what's really close to me. And that gives that feeling, again, of things getting smaller and less detailed the further away they get. And then we have our lines of perspective with this project that create even more sense of distance and depth in the picture. Okay, I have finished watercoloring my picture. So one more time in review, this area is more blurry and less detailed. This kind of middle ground area has more detail than this far away area. They are bigger than these buildings, but smaller than the ones up in front, which are larger and also have more detail. So here I can see signs and lamps, curtains, doors, number signs, plant life, little orange stand for my market, windows. These have some detail with windows and texture of buildings like brick or siding or glass, but these have more details. And I'm going to come in when this is dry and add a few more details with my markers to make this area look even closer and more detailed so that we get some distinguished levels between foreground, middle ground, and background. All right, so we have the watercolor dry now, so I can come in and add more detail. I only want to do that in the very, very front of my picture where things are close to me. So, for example, this is supposed to be a wooden box here. So I can come in and add some more lines to this box, maybe redo some of the outlining to make it darker. And then I want it to look like these are oranges on top of it. So I can come in and color some of the oranges to make them pop. And I can even come in with a second color. I have this yellow orange. And I can do that in some areas. I can create a shadow with my marker on this table where the lamp is. Can come in and give some more color to the stripes in the lampshade. I can add some reflection marks on my windows. Accentuate some of these details. And again, I'm only doing this where it's really close to me, so on this front building and on this side of this building here. I won't come and add details here or here because I want those buildings to look farther away so they have enough detail. And I'm just kind of redoing some outlines or adding some textures, some shadows, little details, just to make this part of the picture look closer to me. So I don't want to go too crazy far here, but it's okay to kind of add some little shadows again on that. So then maybe also on this front building, it's closer. This building's starting to get farther away because you can tell by where this building ends, and this building is closer than that one. So I probably won't add any more detail. The different colored windows is enough detail on that one. So I'm just going to come in and add detail to this building. And so again, I'm redoing outlines, adding shadows, things like that. Maybe making, again, little reflections in some of the windows, just to kind of make them pop a little bit more than the rest, to create that closeness again. Then maybe on these trees I can add more lines, or not trees, on these bushes I can add more lines to create more texture of the leaf pattern. So now these things have more detail. I can even do this in the sidewalk that's closest to me if I want to come in and redo these lines so they stand out where the sidewalk is closer. I could maybe even on this really, really close here, I could add some cracks to the sidewalk if I wanted to, or some shadows or texture, just to make this part of the sidewalk look a little bit closer than this that's farther away. All right, so there you go. There's how to do this cityscape. This is a street in a city, and we've used 1-point perspective. We created larger in the front, smaller in the back, detail in the front, less detail in the back. So we've created what we call a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. Okay, so there you go. That is a finished project for you. This is just one option. If you don't have these materials at home, you can use other materials, anything from a pencil shading to colored pencils and crayons, markers, watercolors, paints. Just depends on what you have available to you at home. The main thing is to try to practice this one-point perspective and this feeling of foreground, middle ground, and background. All right, guys.